Hey, how you doing today? I am Tequila Coleman. In today's video, I want to talk more on the divine replacement. This is part two. I uploaded part one last night in the middle of the night. So if you haven't already watched part one, I highly recommend you go and watch part one. But I want to talk more about this divine replacement and just being very careful, okay, when that thought of the divine replacement comes to mind because, remember when the devil approached Eve, he asked her, he said, did God really say, right? And when the devil asks you a question, right, where Eve went wrong at was communicating back to the devil. She should have rebuked him and went on about her business, but she began to, be in conversation with the devil. She began to allow the devil to get in her mind, to get in her thoughts, right? And I really believe this is what's going on with this divine replacement talk, right? Somewhere the door has been opened to the enemy, right? Where now you are questioning if God really said, if God really chose this particular person, right? If the one I really have in mind is the one, right? And sometimes, like I was saying in part one, sometimes you could be standing for the wrong individual, okay? We can be so fixated on this particular person being our spouse to where we block out what God is telling us, right? God could have been telling, for some of you that this isn't the one I chose for you, right? But if your heart is tied to this individual, if you love this individual, if you have history with this individual, you may not be ready to receive what God is telling you in that moment. And so God is still good because he will still come back around, okay? It could be a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later, right? He will come back around and he will continue to give you the same message. I didn't choose him. And I can say this with full confidence because I was in this situation with one of my children's father. I kept on trying to make him to be the one. God, initially in the first response, God said, let him go, right? Now, I battled with that. I was like, what do you mean let him go, right? This is my child's father. How do I let go of my child's father? He needs to be a part of his child's life. Now I'm giving God reasons why I can't let go, right? And so because I steady held on, then I heard God, it was more of a sensing. I began to sense God telling me to surrender, right? And as I was trying to surrender, because when your heart is tied to someone, it's hard to surrender, right? So as I was trying to surrender, it was a part of me that was still holding on, right? And I'm gonna tell you something, because I was disobedient, because I was so stuck on having who I wanted to have, I was so focused on this is who I want to get married to. God allowed me to have my choice to where I didn't want it anymore. And that is what's going to happen with these divine replacements, okay? This is what's going to happen if you are currently, for those who are currently focused on the wrong one, right? You have in your mind, this is the one who God's chosen and God didn't choose this individual, but yet you're still holding on to him. You're standing, you're praying, you're doing all these things that God didn't tell you to do for this particular person. God has a way of showing you, I didn't choose this one. And even if that means I have to allow you to have this individual so that my hand isn't in it, I would allow you to have this person. I will allow this person to hurt your heart over and over and over again until you see I am not in this, right? And so that's what took place in my life, right? It came to a point where I got tired again just being hurt, okay? I was just tired. I was like, God isn't in this. I don't see the hand of God moving in this situation. I was like, it was just certain things and certain requirements I was, looking for him to meet, and he just wasn't meeting it, right? And I'm sure he had requirements for myself that I probably wasn't meeting, right? And so everything was communicating red flag. This not the one, right? Move on. Move from here, right? I had all of those signs, right? And so and it wasn't until God presented me to my God ordained spouse. God actually used my God ordained spouse, the way how he speak, to speak directly to my heart. Okay, he was building me up. He was healing wounds that was within my heart that I didn't even know was there. And because of that, he used my God ordained spouse to break that attachment that was still attached to the wrong one. Okay, because sometimes we can be so connected to the wrong one, and we know they wrong, but yet we don't know how to stop going back to them. We don't know how to stop giving in to them, right? But that's what God did. He used my God ordained spouse to come in and break that cord, break that tie, break that attachment, right? That's how you know when it's God ordained, because they're able to touch you in a way others couldn't touch you. They're able to come in and bring healing to parts of you that you never thought you needed healing in, right? They help you grow and become better. This is how you know this is God ordained. So, like I said, you want to be very careful with, divine replacement. Be careful with having certain people in your mind, that you're stuck on for them to be the one. When no, you just got a soul tie with this individual and it needs to be broken. It needs to be cut, right? Because God never chose this individual, right? And here's the thing. When we talk about Hagar and Ishmael, because I talked about Hagar and Ishmael in part 1 video where Sarah got impatient, because God promised her and Abram a promised child, but Sarah was impatient. She was like, listen, she had this bright idea. It was a demonic idea. She was like, okay, how about she's telling her husband, how about you go ahead and sleep with my maidservant, and we could have this promised child through her. Now, let me tell you something. Abram, he didn't ask any questions. He didn't, that wisdom didn't kick in. He was like, okay, all right, cool. He was all for it, right? Now, Abram was being led by his eyes, okay? He was being led by his eyes. He was like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. This woman is attractive. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do what you say because you are my wife. I'm going to go ahead and be obedient to it, right? All out of order, right? And now they have created Ishmael. Now Abram has a Hagar in his life that's following him. And here's the thing about when we go ahead of God, when we get impatient with God, we begin to create Hagars and Ishmaels in our lives, right? And now when God brings you and the chosen one together, now, the man got to explain to his wife why Hagar is obsessed with him. Why Hagar keep calling. Why Hagar, won't allow him to see his child. Now he got to go to the court, because Hagar's still in love with him. She still want him. She still believes this her husband, right? So this man going through all of these things because of this Hagar situation. Same thing with Ishmael, right? We create Ishmaels. We create counterfeits, right? All because we gotten impatient. All because we thought I heard God. I thought this one was the one. No. Okay? You would know them by their fruit. That's what the Bible says. You would know a Hagar by her fruit. You would know a Ishmael by his fruit. Okay? Counterfeits produces fruit. And it's bad fruit. Okay? Counterfeits, Ishmael, Hagar, whatever you want to call them, they produce chaos, conflict, distress, right? They produce frustration, anger. They pull you away from God, right? It's all type of stuff. They produce hurt and pain, okay? So you got to begin to know a thing by its fruit, okay? So, and then the last thing I want to talk about, because, again, all these talks of God, God chose Saul and then rejected him and replaced Saul with David. Listen, okay? I already said in part 1, Saul was the people's choice, okay? God did not choose Saul. That was the people's choice. Israel rejected God as king. They were like, look, we want a human being, someone we can see who that can lead us, okay? So God told Samuel, go ahead and give the people what they want, give them who they chose, right? And so out of Saul's disobedience, God stepped in and rejected him, okay? Now, we see in the book of Acts, um Acts chapter 9 verse, just read the whole chapter. Acts chapter 9 it talks about Saul's conversion, right? So this is where God, encounters Saul. He's like, why you persecuting me, Saul? And he put Saul on a 3-day dry fast. Okay, that's how that conversion came about. Scales began to fall off his eyes. Okay, he began to be filled with the Holy Spirit, and then later on, his name was changed from Saul to Paul. So God chose Paul. Okay, he did not choose Saul, and Saul being converted to Paul should encourage those who are dealing with a prodigal spouse who has a hard heart, who may be persecuting you, the chosen one, who may be just unwilling to be obedient to what God is speaking to you right now. This should be an encouragement to you in knowing that nothing is too hard for God. If God can take a Saul and convert him into Paul, he could do the same thing with your prodigal spouse. Nothing is too hard for God. Nothing is impossible with God. God said, I'm doing a new thing. So he will do a new thing in you, your God-ordained prodigal spouse, and this situation. But it's going to require patience. It's going to require for you to not be so focused on marriage and being married to this particular individual, but focus on your purpose. Focus on your relationship with God. Focus on what God is telling you to do and work on now. You got to create some balance in here, because if your focus every single day is on my marriage, when he's coming, who he's with, you're going to overwhelm yourself. You're going to get impatient, and you're going to just feel like God can't do it. He's taking too long, when God's timing isn't your timing. Okay? There's work to be done. Okay? And if God said it, he's going to do it. God is not a man that he shall lie. He cannot lie. His word will not return back to him void. If God promised it to you, his word will fulfill the very thing he said. It has to come to fruition, okay? So understand, okay? Don't go before God and get impatient and start creating these Hagars and Ishmael situations. I remember, I think it was 2 weeks ago, God dropped in my spirit, because he told me the beginning of this year, he was like, be loyal to your God-ordained spouse. I said, okay. But then he reminded me, he brought that same message back up about 2-3 weeks ago. And I was like, okay, I hear you, Lord. He was like, be loyal to your God-ordained spouse. Now, I was wondering, I was like, why God keep telling me this, right? Not knowing that the very next day, Ishmael was going to hit my inbox, right? And I started laughing. I said, oh, that's why you told me. That's why you reminded me of this yesterday. Okay, So God is so good. He will continue to speak to you. He will continue to encourage you. He will remind you in case you try to forget, in case you try to say to yourself, well, while God is working on my spouse, I'm going to go over here and just date around. No. Be loyal to your God-ordained spouse, okay? He's not giving you, God doesn't want you to give the enemy any room to create Ishmaels or Hagars in your life, okay? So you can't even adopt that mindset. I'm going to just go ahead and date around until God sends my God-ordained spouse into my life. No. Now you're playing with fire. Now you about to set yourself up to create these Ishmaels, okay, these counterfeits in your life. And now God is going to have to step in and correct you, and you're creating your own delay in your love story, okay? So I just wanted to share that, in this video. Again, go and watch part 1, Divine Replacement part 1. This is part 2. Also, leave me a positive comment. Like this video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel, okay? And also, if you are looking for one-on-one coaching, just in this whole God-ordained spouse, this God-ordained marriage situation, you need understanding. You're looking for guidance. You're looking for, how do I heal? How do I prepare to walk into this God-ordained marriage? I want you to head over to godordainedmarriages.com and click on the tab that says coaching and sign up for one-on-one coaching, okay? I will put the links down in the description area. So you can go ahead and click that link and sign up for one-on-one coaching. That is it. I am Tequila Coleman. I'll talk to you all real soon. Take care.